The most dangerous prison is the one you build yourself, because it feels like comfort. It doesn't look like a cage. It looks like a glowing rectangle in your hand. It doesn't feel like handcuffs. It feels like infinite entertainment. But look at your posture. Look at your time. Look at how anxious you get when the battery turns red. We are living through a slow-motion collapse, but nobody is screaming. Because slow disasters don't feel like disasters. They feel like checking your notifications. And that's why humans are terrible at slow disasters. They feel like Tuesday. We are built for lightning, not for rust. A predator in the grass? Your body becomes a weapon in half a second. Heart rate spikes. Vision narrows. Your ancestors survived because they could treat a shadow like a threat and be wrong sometimes. But slow disasters? Slow disasters don't trip the alarm system. They don't trigger fear. They trigger familiarity. They slip in the way dust slips in, quietly, constantly, until one day you realize the sunlight doesn't look the same in your own house. There's a name for what your mind does when the danger is delayed. You discount the future like it's a foreign currency. Psychologists call it hyperbolic discounting, but you don't need the term to feel it. It's why you'll trade tomorrow's health for tonight's sugar. Why you'll trade next month's peace for this week's just one more episode. It's not because you're weak. It's because your brain is a deal maker, not a prophet. It values what it can touch. It mistrusts what it can't see. And nothing is harder to see than a cage made of small conveniences. The slow apocalypse doesn't arrive as an explosion. It arrives as a calendar invite. It arrives as an app update. It arrives as allow notifications. And you tap allow because why not? That's the genius of it. Every slow disaster disguises itself as a reasonable request. Another reason we fail, shifting baselines. If a thing changes gradually, you stop noticing the change. The normal moves like a goalpost on wheels. You don't feel yourself adapting. You just wake up one day and wonder why your mind feels noisier than it used to, why silence feels awkward, why boredom feels like a personal insult. A fish doesn't notice water, and a modern human doesn't notice surveillance when it comes with free shipping. Let's talk about the new kind of slow disaster we're living inside, the one with a glowing screen and a polite smile. Digital addiction is not a dramatic spiral. It's not you losing control in a cinematic way. It's more like your attention being leased out in tiny installments, a subscription you never remember signing. The platform doesn't need you to be happy. It needs you to be predictable. Because predictable people are profitable people. And this is where Shoshana Zuboff's ideas matter, because she didn't just describe more ads. She described a new economic logic, surveillance capitalism. The simple version sounds harmless. Companies collect data so they can personalize services. But Zuboff's point is darker and cleaner. The system isn't just observing you, it's extracting you. Your clicks, pauses, swipes, hesitations, late-night doom scrolls, the posts you almost like but don't, those are not little moments. They're raw material, behavioral surplus. The leftovers of your life, scraped off the edges of your day, processed into predictions about what you'll do next. And those predictions aren't just used to understand you, they're used to shape you. That's the part people keep missing. Because shaping doesn't feel like force, shaping feels like suggestion. It feels like the feed gets you. It feels like the algorithm is your friend. But it's not a friend. It's a weather system that learned your internal climate. Here's a micro scene you've lived 1,000 times. It's morning. You wake up and you don't even sit up. You're still half inside a dream, eyes gritty, brain soft. Your hand finds your phone like it's a reflex, not a choice. Your feed starts pouring into you before you've had water. Someone's outrage, someone's highlight reel, someone's 5 habits that will change your life delivered by a stranger with perfect lighting and dead eyes. You aren't deciding what matters, you're being handed what performs. And you can feel it in your body. The slight acceleration, the tiny stress, the hungry curiosity. Not joy, not peace. Something more like being pulled. Like your nervous system is doing trauma accounting in a spreadsheet, and every scroll is another row added. We think of freedom as a big political word. Flags, speeches, dramatic moments. But in real life, freedom is smaller. Freedom is the ability to direct your own attention. Freedom is the ability to stay with a thought long enough to finish it. Freedom is the ability to feel bored and not panic. Freedom is the ability to want something that wasn't planted in you, A slow disaster doesn't steal freedom like a thief steals a wallet. It steals it like fog steals a horizon. One day you look up and the distance is gone. Now let's bring in the uncomfortable mechanics. Digital addiction works because it's built around variable rewards, unpredictable little payoffs. Your brain loves unpredictable payoffs the way a gambler loves a maybe. A notification is a slot machine that fits in your pocket. You pull the lever. Sometimes you get love. Sometimes you get nothing. Your brain learns to keep pulling. But surveillance capitalism adds an extra layer. It isn't satisfied with your attention. It wants your behavior. And not just behavior as in buy this. Behavior as in become a certain kind of person. More reactive, more impulsive, more measurable. More likely to do the thing the system can predict, because prediction is the product. Zuboff's framing is chilling because it suggests a shift. From selling products to you, to selling you as a product. Not you as a human, you as a pattern, you as a probability, you as a forecast. And the more consistent your pattern, the more valuable you are. Think about that. In this economy, your uniqueness isn't celebrated. It's reduced. Your chaos is expensive. Your spontaneity is inconvenient. Your privacy is a kind of darkness the system can't monetize, so it keeps the lights on. Always. Metaphor 1. Surveillance capitalism is a mirror that doesn't just reflect you. It remembers you, edits you, and then sells the edited version back as you. Metaphor 2. Your data is your shadow sold by the pound, and you keep walking, wondering why the world feels heavier. Metaphor 3. Notifications are mosquitoes that learn your blood type. They don't need to be loud, they just need to be precise. Metaphor 4. Convenience is a velvet conveyor belt. It feels soft under your feet, so you don't notice you're being carried somewhere. Metaphor 5. Your attention is a rental car. You hand it over every day and it comes back with dents you can't explain and a smell you didn't choose. Here's another micro scene, modern and almost funny until it isn't. You're at work. You open your laptop to do one thing, a simple task. Then a message pops up, then an email, then a meeting reminder, then a quick question from someone who could have waited. You hop between tabs like a trapped animal, and by noon your brain feels like it's been lightly fried. You didn't do your job. You did the system's job, stay available, stay responsive, stay measurable. And when you finally get a second of quiet, you don't feel relief. You feel withdrawal. Because your brain has been trained to equate stimulation with safety. Silence feels like being left out. And now the twist. Here's the trapdoor moment. The slow disaster isn't just that companies know things about you. The deeper disaster is that your choices are being pre-written, not in a dramatic mind control way, in a path of least resistance way. Behavioral modification doesn't have to be a command. It can be a nudge, a default setting, a little friction removed here, a little friction added there. When you're tired, you don't resist the path. You become the path. This is how a person turns into a predictable product, not because someone takes their freedom in a single act, but because freedom becomes exhausting. Choice becomes heavy, thinking becomes slow, and the system is built to keep you slightly too tired to notice what you're losing. It's not a boot on your neck. It's a pillow over your face, soft enough that you don't panic, firm enough that you stop moving. That's digital serfdom, not chains, an ecosystem, a life where you rent your own mind back in exchange for access to the world. Because try opting out. Try living without the maps, the messaging, the banking apps, the workplace tools, the QR codes, the smart everything. You can do it technically. But the system makes no socially expensive. It makes refusal feel like being inconvenient, and humans hate being inconvenient. We'd rather give up a little dignity than make someone uncomfortable at the checkout line. So we comply, quietly, and we call it modern life. Here's the third micro scene, the one that really exposes it. You're on a dating app. The faces keep appearing like cards in a deck. You tell yourself you're choosing, but after a while you notice your brain isn't even seeing people, it's scanning, evaluating, ranking, swiping. The app starts feeling like a vending machine where you insert hope and receive small disappointments, and then the app learns you. Not your soul, your swiping rhythm, your late-night loneliness pattern, the kind of face you pause on for half a second longer, the kind of bio that hooks you. Now you're not just on a platform. You're inside a feedback loop, It's not just predicting what you'll like, it's training what you'll like. That's the quiet horror. The loop closes. You become a person shaped by what you're fed, and what you're fed is shaped by who you already were, and who you already were was shaped by what you were fed. A self-licking ice cream cone of identity, a slow apocalypse of the self. No pain, no blood, just a slow loss of freedom disguised as personalization. And the cruel irony is that the system will always tell you this is what you wanted, because it's measuring your behavior, not your values. It doesn't know what matters to you. It knows what you do when you're bored, lonely, stressed, or hungry. It knows your weakest moments because that's when you're most predictable. That's when you generate the cleanest data. That's when you become the easiest to steer. So what do you do? Not a motivational speech, not delete all your apps and move to a cabin. Realistic shifts, biological, strategic, stoic. First shift, put friction back into your life on purpose. The system wins by removing friction. One-click purchase, autoplay, endless scroll, instant delivery. Recommended for you. If freedom is choice, friction is the muscle that makes choice possible. So build speed bumps. Turn off non-essential notifications. Not because you're a minimalist saint, but because you're not designed to be interrupted every 7 minutes. Make your phone less of a slot machine. Put the addictive apps behind an extra step. Log out. Use a longer passcode. Move them off the home screen. Make the behavior slightly annoying. A tiny annoyance is not a tragedy, it's a boundary. Second shift. Stop treating your attention like an infinite resource. You schedule meetings, you schedule workouts, you schedule deadlines. But you don't schedule silence. You don't protect your mind like it's a place you live in. Start creating offline pockets, the way you'd create oxygen pockets underwater. 30 minutes in the morning without the feed. A commute without audio. A meal without the phone on the table. Not forever. Just enough to remind your brain that it can exist without being harvested. Because attention hygiene isn't self-care, it's sovereignty. Third shift, become deliberately less legible. This is the one people hate because it doesn't feel like empowerment. It feels like giving up convenience, and that's the point. Surveillance capitalism thrives on legibility, on turning your life into a clean data trail. You don't have to become paranoid, you just have to stop volunteering so much. Ask yourself quietly before you tap agree. Is this service worth the slice of my life it requires? Not in theory, in practice. Because every permission is a little door you leave open, not because there's a monster outside, but because the air changes when you live with every door open. And here's the sneaky part. You don't even need to win this fight completely. You just need to stop losing automatically. You just need to interrupt the loop enough times that your brain remembers it has hands on the steering wheel. And one more thing, because this is the part nobody wants to admit. A lot of what keeps you stuck is emotional. We pretend it's about tools and settings, but it's about belonging. The feed is a synthetic tribe. Notifications are synthetic importance. Likes are synthetic warmth. Endless scroll is synthetic purpose. If you remove the synthetic, the real emptiness shows up. The grey fog you've been outrunning. So the exit is not just digital, it's existential. You have to decide what you're doing with your life when nobody is watching. You have to build a life that feels real enough that you don't need the algorithm to tell you you exist. That's what makes slow disasters so dangerous. They don't just steal your time, they replace your meaning with noise. And they do it gradually enough that you thank them for it. So here's the final haunting thing. If surveillance capitalism is turning humans into predictable products, the real question isn't, what do they know about you? The real question is, what part of you have you already stopped protecting because you got used to living without it?